our final speaker of the program, and she's a graduate of St. Norbert College and a proud one, and the college is proud of her because she is the Vice President and General Counsel of the Milwaukee Brewers, one of the highest-ranking women executives in major American sports. I'm talking about Marti Wronski, a 1994 graduate of St. Norbert, and she's beginning her 8th season with the team, her 6th in her current role, and she oversees, folks, all the legal and contractual work, including players and coaches' contracts, sponsorship contracts, legal designs for trademark and fan entertainment, and compliance matters. It's a huge job in today's game. Before joining the Brewers, Wronski worked as a litigation associate in Foley & Lardner, Milwaukee's office from 1997 to 2001, and joined Marquette University Law School for the 2002-2003 academic year as an assistant professor. A native of Neenah, Wisconsin, she graduated summa cum laude from St. Norbert College, and she graduated from the University of Wisconsin Law School with high honors in 1997. Please join me in welcoming Marti Wronski.
Wow, with that voice, it makes it sound so much better. I think I could have, flunked out several times, and with Wayne saying it like that, I would have sounded awesome. Okay, not this. Here we go. All right. I got all these contraptions up here, guys. I'm telling you, I got gear. So if I go like this, it's going to, oh, look at that, it works. Okay. Got to test all these things out before we do too much. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I really am thrilled to be here. My workday thus far has been spending my morning at Miller Park, driving here in the beautiful sun, spending my afternoon at Lambeau Field, and I will spend my evening at Whitefish Bay Little League Fields, which, sounds slightly less desirable, but it is lovely nonetheless. So it's a sports day for me. So thank you so much for having me here. When Dr. Quinn asked me to join all of you today to think out loud a little bit about the role that the Milwaukee Brewers play in their community, in the Milwaukee community and in Wisconsin at large, I really started thinking that is not a topic that I commonly present on. It's one that I certainly live deliberately and accidentally every single day, but it's not a topic that I often present on, so I thought about it quite a bit. And I also did a little research. I was just telling Dr. Quinn, I actually formally did research on sort of the relationships or the measures of the role of sports in society. And it appears to me that there are some very formal measures of the role of sports in society, those that are more like the ones Dr. Quinn and his folks do and publish on and all those good things. And then there's certainly the less formal studies, such as the tone with which I'm greeted by folks at Starbucks each morning, the frequency with which my children decide to wear their Brewers t-shirts, and the frequency with which my husband shows up at Brewer games over lunch hour. When I don't see him, I know it's not looking good. And these days I haven't seen him lately, so hey, we all know we're in a little bit of a rough spot right now. But I think the answer is, or the point is that regardless of the measure you might use or impose, there's a very, very real and important role that sports plays in society. But what I think is equally important, and something that I'd like to talk a little bit about today, is the role that society plays in sport. There's no doubt that the relationship is entirely symbiotic. One needs the other to survive. And on a very most basic level, that's because sport needs its fans to survive. No fans, no revenue, no players, no sport, right? Very, very basic level. But it can't be quite that simple, because we all know that there are a number of sports teams out there that might have a phenomenally performing team on the field or the court or wherever it might be, but they don't quite have their hooks into their community. They don't quite have the hook in society that you might expect to see. So there's got to be more going on than simply that very basic relationship. So to impose a little structure on our thinking out loud together today, there are two basic theories I thought I'd touch upon. The first is the theory that for any sports franchise to truly become iconic, it has to have a good and important story to tell, that we are a storytelling society and there has to be a story to tell. And the second point is that the most successful franchises are those where those in charge of the business have managed to find a good balance between money in and money out, between the players on the field and then the athletes and the revenue drive. And so those are the two main things we'll talk about today, and then I'll share a little bit about some challenges and opportunities that I see coming on. We're a little bit multimedia because I brought in a couple examples and spots, so we're going to do our best to work back and forth. You don't have to do anything right now, don't worry. So if you see me false cueing or cueing, this is not what I do in my day job. So how is it that the role of one sports team can become so ingrained in its community while another does not? This little thing is just bouncing around like crazy to me. Okay. I suppose that's $1 million question. How can you have a team that does not succeed consistently? The Brewers, admittedly, we do not succeed consistently on the field. How do you have a team that does not succeed consistently but yet manages to truly find a spot in their society or a spot in their community that really is treasured? And the theory goes, and many theorists believe, that you have to have an important story, one that folks can follow over time. Little fish, big pond finds great success. Or big fish, big pond, big stars, big success. Whatever the role of those characters might be, the theory goes that you've got to have a story there. As a mother of 4, that theory, I will tell you, makes sense to me, right? The little engine that could, I still can hear my mom doing the, I can do it. Corduroy Bear. We all know that storytelling does matter, and storytelling does help any club or any franchise connect with the society in which it exists. So what I thought we would do here briefly is take a look through the Brewers Timeline, a very brief look through some of our timeline points, to look at the story that the Brewers have to tell. I would argue that or submit that it is not the story alone, but also a lot of luck that you'll see, and some strong marketing efforts that help us frame exactly what that story becomes and how it looks. So if you'll bear with me for a moment. I believe you heard from our dear friend, the commissioner, either yesterday or the day before. So it was in 1970 that Alan Selig first created the Milwaukee Brewers, Inc., and purchased the Seattle Pilots. Now, Mr. Selig immediately renamed the team to the Milwaukee Brewers as a nod to the Milwaukee area. I would argue, or submit, can you tell I'm a lawyer? I would argue, sorry. I would submit that that is clearly the commissioner's first nod to the importance of the community and the importance of society in this team. So not just the role of our sport in the society, but showing that how very important the community is for us as well. This is also where our luck begins a little bit, my friends. It's not every day that a small-town club ends up with the commissioner of Major League Baseball and a figure like this remaining affiliated with them for the next many, many years. I see the commissioner on an incredibly regular basis, which does have its pros and cons. As long as he's not here, I will tell you that. He is watching me all the time, but mostly pros, that is for sure. So in 1974, Robin Yount joins the club. And Robin, again, has remained involved with our club 38 years later. Robin is still in Milwaukee regularly. There's no doubt he was one of the biggest figures in baseball at this time, and he was associated with our club. So the story continues with big characters of this kind. Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron joins our club the next year in 1975. Again, a touch of luck. But again, this is another individual, another figure that remains part of our story today. Hank was just back last week. He was a commencement speaker at Marquette University, comes out to the ballpark, greets the fans. This is someone who, again, was part of our story, remains involved with us in a very real way. The ball and glove logo. Next piece in our story, we developed the ball and glove logo. This remains the most beloved logo to this day. It sells more than any other logo. It has been around since 1978. And again, every time we try to get rid of this one or change it out, we are extremely unhappy. We tried to change the shade of the blue in it at one point. Oh my gosh, my phone was ringing. I'm like, I'm so not, this is not in my bucket, but we heard about it. 1982. We have a team in the World Series. What can be, well, the wing could have been better than that, but there's not much that can be better than participation in the World Series. Went down to St. Louis. I shouldn't have even said it out loud. Anyway, we went down to St. Louis. But with personalities like Raleigh, Paulie, Robin, again, this was an iconic team, and it happens to be part of the story that the Brewers have to tell. Again, we've become members of the National League in 1997, and we've continued to have these big name players. We changed over to two uniforms, so we went to the more formal uniform. Again, huge objections, but there's no doubt that the dress of our team and the more formality of the team going back and forth between the two uniforms was a huge change. Okay, we move forward after the tragedy to 2001, the commissioner's brainchild, and we're now in the new state-of-the-art facility that absolutely has become a new chapter in the story of the Brewers. This facility has done more for us than we can possibly ever explain, but it's absolutely part of our story. We opened in '01 in this particular ballpark. This is the part of the story where I laugh a little bit. I was hired in December of '03 by the commissioner. And exactly 3 weeks later, he told me he was selling the club. So I was like, oh, okay, what are we going to do about that? But in any event, a year later, the Attanasio family with Mark Attanasio purchased the club. And within the first 3 weeks of Mr. Attanasio owning the club, Mark was quoted more than 300 times with references to the importance of the community with our club and the importance of staying in Milwaukee and that we would do exactly that. So the commissioner and Mark spent hours upon hours upon hours together talking about the importance of this club staying in Milwaukee, the role that this club would play in Milwaukee, and really the importance of our fans to all of us. And there's no doubt that we've continued to hear those things from Mark as we go forward. In '07, Bronze Rookie of the Year. Again, our story continues to go. '08, we clinched the wild card in the last game. Bring CeCe Sabathia in. You got to have a big personality, right? The little character change, switch that up. Brought CeCe in. There's no doubt that he's part of the story that we can tell. Brought Trevor in and let him end his lovely and meet all of his records well with us. Brought Ron in. When Ron knows that I do this from time to time, he's like, I'm so not an interesting character. Don't use me in this, but I'll reserve comment on that. He's good at what he does. We bring in additional characters like Grenke. And then we know how the story goes from there. For those of you who were there or have seen these moments, last year's celebration and victory was certainly a phenomenal place for our story to take us to. So as I look at this timeline and I look at the story that we've told, we can tell, we are a tiny little club. We are the 30th out of 31 in size. And yet we have a pretty profound story to tell. We were created, for all intents and purposes, by the Commissioner of Major League Baseball. We have huge stars, I will call them, like Robin and Hank, that continue to come back and be part of our story. We have accidentally created uniforms. I mean, it really was a citizen that created that ball and glove logo originally. And you see these things all over the state. I was going to say the country. I guess there's a couple in New York because some of my family members live there, but I think we're mostly all over the state. And so there is absolutely a profound story for this club to tell, and it certainly could, under the theories that are out there, be part of the reason that we have been able to forge such a great relationship with our surrounding community. But I would also submit that it's not the story alone that can create greatness or that can really make a club iconic even in its own community. There certainly has to be a very strategic and deliberate marketing effort to truly understand the story, to capture the story, and to use the story as you continue to build on it. And I have a piece that we can take a look at. Oh, you know what? I got to show one more. Sorry, I missed my list. Uh-oh. Did you already start to go to the video? Is that what happened? I think it was going so well. Unfortunately, I'm trying to get, oh, see, and that's the picture I was trying to get to, is Prince, which I was going to say every story has to have a little bit of a sour note. You know, you need your ebbs and flows and whatever else it might be. But for those of you, Prince Fielder obviously is probably the most recent piece in our story. We're going to avoid the Braun story. So Prince is probably the most recent piece in our story. So there's good points and bad points to every team's story. But in any event, as I was saying, we can take long looks at our club story, but we can also take small snippets. And one thing that our marketing department has been brilliant at doing in its ongoing efforts to connect with the community is taking these small, exciting moments and turning them into stories. For those of us who go out on the road and present about our club, or for those of us who are, selling the club to folks. And so I brought with today a three-minute video that I want you to take a look at. This is how the storytelling goes when you do it in small pieces. But that's, again, an effort by our folks to tell the story of the Brewers, to get out there and to remind people. We're playing this at the ballpark. We're playing it when we present to people, to remind people what our story is and to keep them coming back and remembering. And I will tell you, in a season that starts the way this, we can go to the next slide and we can get Prince off there. We just don't want to stare at him for too long. But in any event, I think as the season starts rough sometimes, one of the things that we're very aware we need to do is to stay connected, to remind people about the good things that we had a matter of weeks ago. I'm going to digress for 1 second. I was in the produce section with my son the other day, and there was a guy talking about the Cubs front office being brilliant currently, unlike another front office we know. And I came home, and I actually was not quick, but Andy said to me, "Did you say how fast you forget?" And I said, "No, I was too angry and trying not to say a bad thing in front of my son." But it was, it's amazing how quickly people forget. We started off a season losing, and it's rough right now. We have a lot of injuries, but it was truly a matter of months ago that we were in a very different, and we were all brilliant then. But, choose to remember that part instead. In any event, the theory that a franchise to be great and to truly connect needs a story, I think there's something to it. I think that we can see that there is certainly a story for our club to tell, and it could explain one of the reasons that we're performing in the way we are, which we're going to talk. You saw some of the numbers in that story, but we're going to talk a little more about that. Certainly, a story isn't enough, though. It's not enough just to have a good story to tell. There's certainly a business component to any franchise or club's success. And I would submit that it is imperative that the business unit that's behind that ball club going onto the field has to have a very real understanding of who the club is, both in terms of the community it exists in and in terms of who that club is realistically, who they are in the market and who they are financially. Now, we're going to start with this concept of the small market team. It is probably what you hear more than anything. I've already said it twice today. The Brewers truly are the quintessential small market team. What on earth does that mean? Well, when we talk about the measure of the size of the community in which any team exists, we talk about demographic market area by population, the DMA. Most of you probably are familiar with that, but that's what we talk about. And we are 30th out of 31 in Major League Baseball for demographic market area. We are truly in the smallest market area there is. Something that's key to understand when I talk about market area is that DMA is driven entirely by the number of households. So, in the Milwaukee area, one ratings point is 9,200 households. Okay? We have had the highest, and I'll show you this in a bit. We have had one of the highest ratings in all of MLB for the past 5 years. Here's the problem. In California, one ratings point is literally 10 times the number of households. So, the 10 times the number of eyes, actually it's 20 because there's 2.5 people per household they estimate. So for every one ratings point we might develop, we've got a tenth of the people, tenth of the eyeballs that are seeing and doing and watching what it is we've got going on. So how does the fact that we're a small market matter? It matters in a lot of ways. In terms of revenue, less national sponsors. If you're a national sponsor and you can look at the number of eyeballs that are seeing a particular game, it matters. You're going to choose to spend your dollars in the places where your product will be seen the most. So in terms of national, and I'm saying national as opposed to local, national sponsorship revenue, which certainly matters. Smaller TV and radio deals, possibly. A smaller number of potential fans. By definition, that's the case. By definition, that we have a smaller number of eyeballs to grab or a smaller number of people to put in the seats in our ballpark. But there's no doubt that those of us on the revenue side care about market size a lot. It makes a huge difference in terms of the potential revenue. It's something that we have to be very, very aware of and figure out all the time how we are still going to reach out and grab. To us, what that means is we better get a larger percentage of our folks in. We've just got to reach a little bit wider and a little bit deeper in order to get our people. So we're aware of this concept all the time. But I will tell you that despite the fact that we are by definition a small market team, the Brewers have not for the last 5 years performed like a small market team in any way. There's a number of things we can look at. And the first, in my opinion, and perhaps the most telling, is attendance. So this is the number of people actually in our ballpark. In 11, you saw this in the prior video, in 11 we had 3.1 million fans. We were 7th in all of Major League Baseball. Yes, we were performing last season extraordinarily well, but still, to reach those numbers in our small market area, that's incredible. Since 2003, our attendance has increased 81%. I started in 03, so I always like that particular stat. Anyway, has nothing to do with me, but I say it anyway. Again, from 08 through 11, group sales. So sales to groups of 20 or more, top 5 in MLB. If you look at sort of the attendance trend, you can see the direction. No doubt there was a drop-off in 10 when we weren't performing as we weren't this year. I mean, there's no doubt performance of the team, which we'll talk about in a minute, definitely matters. But we've still got our crazy fans doing crazy things. We can also look at ratings. Ratings, again, are something that are incredibly important to look at for any Major League Baseball team to determine. So we talk about the number of bodies we have in the ballpark in terms of attendance. Now we talk about the number of eyeballs that we've got actually watching our teams. How much are we saturating society to actually watch our teams? 08 and 09, we're in the top 5 in MLB, 10, top 10. Again, performance matters. Dropped a bit, and in 11, we had the best cable market in team history. We were very, very proud of that last year, and we were 3rd among all MLB teams, which I will tell you, that really was unheard of for our fans to be watching that many. But if you think about it, everywhere you went, it was pretty much what everybody was doing everywhere they went, which is fantastic. And again, our ratings were up last year 65% over 2010. And now we look at a few more modern measures of how we're performing. You know, normally you think about ratings and attendance, but we have to look at the number of hits we're getting online and how frequently we're getting visitors online. And some of that's generational, but I know my mom is one of the people out there, you know, trying to check our website. So I guess it's not purely generational because she always lets me know when there's something wrong with it. I used last September, it was the most hits we ever had. And if you think about it, it's when we were in the playoffs. But we had over 4 million hits on Brewers.com last September alone. Clearly, society's paying attention. Our online traffic's been in the top 3rd, and MLB.com's in the top 10 of all visitors. Got Bernie doing a little shebang there. So I think that if we step back and look at market size as a potential detriment to our club, and by all accounts, it really should be. If we are that tiny, how is it we are continuing to perform in this way and we're continuing to penetrate society? And reach out in the Milwaukee area. Well, there's another set of theories out there, and this is one that I think on the business side I understand and grasp most directly and most seriously, and that is that this is all a balancing act. So a balancing act between managing the number 1 expense item and focusing on the number 1 revenue item. How are we managing the player payroll, and how are we focusing on bringing in revenue, bringing in people to our ballpark? And really, frankly, I think that's where the magic lies. And so let's just shoot through a couple ways that we at our club, we're doing something right. I mean, this is not me, so I'm not patting my own back, but we're doing something right. And one of those things is managing the player payroll. Don't start throwing things fairly effectively. But one of the ways to do that is to develop talent internally. And why is developing talent internally? We're talking about bringing guys in through the minors. We're bringing them in the draft. We're bringing them up through our own system, and we're keeping them in our system and getting them on the field. Guys like Corey Hart, Jonathan Lucroy, who I'll pause here. He's our current superstar, so we'll pause on Jonathan here for a moment and stare at him for a minute. But you know, it proves very, very cost effective to develop talent internally, to bring these guys all the way up. It absolutely is a positive in terms of market connectivity. When you've got little kids who are watching these guys come up through the minors, and they keep watching them all the way through until they're in the majors, they own those t-shirts that they don't have to throw away every year. People know them. It makes a very, very real difference from a revenue perspective to have those folks in. And again, it helps our marketing connectivity. A stat that I love, Weeks is another one of the guys that we brought up and through. In 2011, 15 players on the Major League roster were homegrown, and at most times, 6 of the players on the field at any given time right through the playoffs were homegrown. That's a stat that no one else in Major League Baseball has, and it is one that we think has helped us dramatically on the business side to continue to bring folks in. People ask me all the time, so do you mean to tell me that your baseball guys are purposely bringing these guys up? No. I don't mean to suggest that, you know, Doug is saying, you know, oh, let's just keep this guy because people like his T-shirts. That's not what I intend to say. But the reality is there's this relationship that you can't ignore between the two. And as we focus on certain things on the business or on the baseball side, there is a clear impact on the baseball or business side as well. And Fielder, yes, we brought him up and through as well. All right, the second piece of this is identifying and working to retain talent. And again, it's for a lot of the same reasons. You want long-term deals. This is something that helps us keep a strong customer or client and fan base like you would not believe. It's for the very same reasons. People want to connect to a player. It's the reason that Paulie and Robin, those guys were icons because they were around and people connected to them. They were also fantastic. But folks like Braun signed to a long-term deal with us. Gallardo signed to a long-term deal. And a few others. Those are guys now who, and Luke Roy, we've now got signed. I could have put his picture in about 7 places because we've got him around for a long time now as well. And then, of course, identifying and securing new talent. I won't lie to you. On the business side, when we knew we were going to be without Prince, we panicked a little. Who was our superstar on the business side, or from the business perspective, going to be? Who was it we were going to sell to our fans as the new big personality? We sighed when we have Greinke, we've got Markham. These were all exciting. Niger gave us a fun ride last year. K-Rod's been fantastic. And the hope was that Ramirez, and I'm still going to hope that at some point he does what we want him to do. Once in a while we see rays of sunshine. But this was the personality that came in that we really thought might take on that role quite largely. Prince was going out, but you know what? He's a big personality, and we really thought that was going to play well for us on the business side as well as the baseball side. So homegrown talent, long-term deals, and bringing in new talent. I can tell you we charted in last season and in 08, we charted every time we'd bring a new player in right at the end. Our ticket sales, it was almost like watching the stock market. Our ticket sales right after we'd sign a new player or announce it, it's funny, they're not usually signed, they're usually sitting on my desk, but we announce that they're signed. And so we announce it, I'm always like, oh, I better get going on this. But we announce that these deals are signed, and literally we bring extra staff into our ticket department the minute we know we're gonna release it, because people love to see a new person on the field or on the mound or wherever else. There is a very, very real relationship between these characters that we put out there on the field. I didn't really mean characters, but I kind of do. And the fan base connecting and wanting to be there and wanting to see what it is that we have going. So those are the 3 areas where we are focusing on the baseball side in terms of managing that payroll, but that bleed over into that social piece and have a very real role there. Now, the area where it's more deliberate that we're reaching out to our fans and we're really trying to reach at society and get our hooks in our fantastic fans is on generating admissions revenue. And when I talk about admissions revenue, I'm talking about ticket sales, concessions, parking, and merchandise. And I think we can boil it down to a number of very deliberate ways that we normally, or that we have focused on getting to know our community and doing things for our community. The first one is fielding a competitive team. That is a little bit out of our hands. We just hope for it and cross our fingers for it. We have had that in certain years, and we haven't in other years. But that is absolutely a piece of the puzzle. As you saw, 2010 dip. I'm not going on record as saying that could happen this season. It could happen this season. We'll see how that goes. But performance, no doubt. Moments like this are moments that fans want to see. They want to be there. Offer an affordable product. Again, this circles back, and as I said, so many of the things I'm talking about will all circle back to one another. This circles back to knowing that we are a small market club, knowing the affluence or the level of income in certain areas. We have a group of people that studies on an ongoing basis what our community is willing to do, can do, and needs to do in terms of affordability and being at our ballpark. You're not going to see us charging Boston Red Sox ticket prices or the amount that the Yankees charge for a suite, which is unbelievable. And again, we really do pay attention to these things. And we're proud that in 2011, the Brewers placed in the top quarter of all MLB, NBA, NHL, and NFL teams in terms of how much we give back to the fans. So in terms of the kinds of promotions we do and what we're doing out there in the community. And we ranked in the top 10 in terms of affordability and stadium experience. Love those little guys. Again, we've also been focusing on enhancing the Miller Park experience. We get feedback constantly from fans. Really, fans are amazing communicators. And we get letters and postings and feedback box kinds of things that tell us constantly. So we are constantly developing our ballpark. We're adding new clubs. We're adding tons of new retail. Like you would not believe, we really heard a lot about retail. We went high def. Last year we unveiled our new scoreboard, which so many said, why on earth would we need a new scoreboard already? It was probably the biggest thing we heard about was sound and video from fans that they weren't liking. It was 10 years old, and we were absolutely behind in terms of the technology. And there it is. It's quite beautiful. We added the ribbon boards because fans said that they couldn't see enough. We've also gone to all closed captioning for our hearing impaired, and we've done a lot of other fantastic things on these ribbon boards to, again, answer to the fans. Preserving player continuity. I'll say it briefly. It is a hugely important way for us to keep our fans coming back. People want to see our same fans, or fans want to see our same players. They want those superstars desperately, and that is something that we are very focused on. And then finally, connecting to the community, and connecting to the community in a very deliberate way. We send our guys out into the community almost every off day that they are, some of them are out every off day that they are in town. Now realize, our guys are on the road so much more than football players or anyone else is on the road. They're on the road almost constantly. But when they are not, they are out in the community signing things. I actually was given, these guys are so funny, they wanted me to bring the numbers of how often they're out there. So here we go, we've got it. All right, let's see. The players and coaches donated last season alone, donated over 350 individual hours to the community and signings and whatever else. It doesn't sound like a ton, but if you figure out how much they're in town and how many off hours they have, it actually is. They do a great job. The sausages, I don't mean to compare players to sausages, but the sausages were literally booked on every single off day we had. And I will tell you, in 2012, they are booked through, we have 2 sets, so don't panic if you still want to book a date, but one set of them is booked through July of 2012. Every single day that we are off, it's baffling in some ways, but clearly we've made a connection with the community, and it's something that matters. Again, the Brewers have donated over 150,000 items in 2011 to various causes around the community, auctions that ask for donations and items of that kind. So in a very real sense, there's also a connection to the community there, and something that we feel is very important to focus on. Mark and Debbie Atanasio, together with Uke and some folks from the Y, formed the Brewers Community Foundation, which is the foundation piece of our organization. And again, we're out there all over the place recognizing the importance of the actually getting out there with the community. Again, so I will tell you, Bernie and the sausages are probably our biggest connector. They make me absolutely the most popular. My kids are 9, 8, 7, and 4, and they make me more popular than anything I could ever do. If I show up at school with a sausage, I am golden. Our family was the sausages for Halloween too, and Andy had to wear the Polish, so it was pretty fantastic. The boys were the little ones, and so it does. I mean, believe me. But again, the kids, the recognition out there in the kids, it is unbelievably effective in making sure that you have fans that appreciate you. You've got to come at the angle of the younger folks. You've got to come at the angle of the older folks, and you've got to get in between as well. And these are the kinds of things that make all the difference in the world. Again, we're up in Appleton, so this is Fang from Appleton with Bernie, who's our other creature. I guess he's supposed to be a person, but and again, our trademarks, these are trademarked mascots that make a huge difference to us. But again, we come up to Appleton a lot to try to reach, further north and grab, now that we have a AAA affiliate in Appleton as well. In the sausage race, did anybody see yesterday when the sausages almost ran over the catcher from the other team? He walked right out in the middle of them and screamed his head off. He was just like, what just happened? It was hysterical. But I mean, they are absolutely iconic. I also think that I get more questions about the sausages. Is it rigged? Is it rigged? It's not rigged. It's not rigged, I promise. But I get more questions about the sausages than pretty much anything we do. All right, so again, these are just some ways that, and as Dr. Quinn asked me to just think out loud with you all today, these are just some ways and some theories out there about how certain teams best connect with their communities. How is it that this small market team has really managed to reach out to their community to the extent they have? Yes, we have a good story to tell. Yes, we've gotten lucky in some cases. Yes, we have a business group that is really, really focused on trying to embrace that story and to continue to move it forward. But we also are very aware of on an ongoing basis of exactly what the demands and needs are of the fan base, because we need those bodies in. They are endlessly important to us. Just last week we did the where's Chorizo? And I don't know if anybody up here north heard about it, but we hid 5,000 Chorizo lawn ornaments. We started at 5 in the morning. 5,000 human beings came to Miller Park between we hit them at 3 o'clock in the morning. 5,000 fans came to Miller Park between 5 a.m. and 5:45 a.m. Everyone was gone, and it was one per person. So it is crazy the kinds of reach and the impact that these kinds of promotions can have. It sounds like the dumbest thing. I know. I mean, I know that this sounds ridiculous, but these are the creative ways that we are managing to reach out to society. Very briefly, before I show you a few last pieces we have, some of the challenges and opportunities going forward. As a team doesn't perform as well, how do you stay fresh? How much more creative can you get? How much more can you build onto your ballpark or create new fan attractions? We have people that are dedicated to this 100%, but what is it you can keep doing even when your team might not be performing to still be bringing those folks in? It's really easy coming off a playoff year to get that first batch of people back for the excitement, but what happens in between? Now, I'm hoping we're not going to have to deal with it because I'm hoping we're going to get a bunch of players back and it'll go the other direction. But what do you do? That is absolutely a challenge for us. The economy absolutely remains a challenge for us. Our market size definitely remains a challenge. On the plus side, the new numbers that the commissioner just published, over 120 million people will attend baseball games this season. 120 million people, not at Miller Park, across the country, will attend games. And there is no doubt that Milwaukee and Wisconsin continue to show their support of this sport. I cannot believe the number of people that come. We're a destination yet. They will stay all day if they can, and they really do make it a meeting place to be. And a final note, what may be most telling is the Brewers, too, understand the role of sport in society and the fact that we have in Wisconsin the MLB MVP and the NFL MVP in the very same state. And we did a little research in this last offseason in terms of what would be effective in reintroducing, coming back with the Brewers. What could we do to sort of grab everyone at that time? Because these started coming out during someone else's season. So I brought along today the raw clips the raw spots to share with you as I conclude of a few efforts we made to connect all the way.